Hello everyone and welcome to the final installment of our 9.1 raid guides. This is Crzypck from Complexity Limit, and today we're going to show you how to defeat Mythic Sylvanas Windrunner and claim your cutting edge achievement. As with all of our Mythic guides, we're assuming you know the heroic version of the encounter and will be focused entirely on the Mythic strategy. Let's start with the obvious. This is a very long encounter. Expect the fight to last a bit over 14 minutes. Because of the sheer length of this encounter, we're going to do something a bit different for the video. Instead of going through all of the changes for the entire encounter and then going into the full strategy, we're going to break things up stage by stage. You'll find all of the aspects and strategy for each stage individually with timestamps in the video description for easy navigation. Let's jump right in. First and foremost, we recommend going in with 2 tanks, 4 healers, and 14 DPS. For stage 1, there's a few important mechanical changes. 3 of them are in relation to the domination arrows. On Mythic, if you get pulled to within 4 yards of the arrow you are connected with, instead of just you dying, you'll explode and kill yourself and anyone within 30 yards. Additionally, being affected by the chain from the arrow will apply a stack of the Woe debuff. This causes you to explode for about 1300 damage to the entire raid any subsequent time you get chained to an arrow. This effect stacks and increases the damage of the explosion with each stack. Third, each set of arrows now has a preset spawn location, which you can see on your screens now. This will allow you to essentially choose who gets attached to arrows for each set, since the arrows will always target the closest available player. The other major mechanical change in stage 1 is the black arrow, which has received pretty significant buffs. For starters, once the black arrow shoots and hits its target, 2 Dark Sentinel ads will spawn from the location of the person hit. These ads will each fixate a random player. Every 4.5 seconds, they'll buff themselves, increasing their damage dealt by 10% and reducing the effectiveness of crowd control by 20%. On top of this, after casting Black Arrow, Sylvanas gains a stack of a buff, which increases both the number of players targeted and the number of ads spawned on her next Black Arrow cast by 1. This means that cast 1 of Black Arrow will affect 1 player and have 2 ads. Cast number 2 will affect 2 players and have 6 ads. And cast number 3 will affect 3 players and spawn 12 ads. Strategy wise, stage 1 is still pretty straightforward. Because the fight is so long, we recommend you use your first Bloodlust on pull. It will be up again in stage 3. When Veil of Darkness comes out, run out of the giant circle. Don't get hit by the swirlies during Windrunner. Tanks will need to ensure that they have active mitigation up when the boss casts Ranger's Heartseeker. It really freaking hurts on Mythic, you don't want to get killed by it. Black Arrow will be cast at 40 seconds in, 1 minute and 43 seconds, and 2 minutes and 47 seconds. This should be brought to an edge of the platform. For casts number 2 and 3, the arrows are each shot about 3 seconds apart per person, so you'll have time to run to the same spot without really overlapping. We strongly recommend you do this so the ads start stacked up. As the ads spawn, you'll want to throw down crowd controls. What we did was put a ring of frost down between the arrow target spot and the raid. The ads would walk into the ring and get frozen, and then we'd apply various other slows. After the ring of frost, we drop a ring of peace, but any knockback will work there. Keep them away from the raid and AoE them down. For the domination arrows, since you know where they're going to spawn, as a raid, you should move towards those areas a bit before the arrows come out. These come out at 29 seconds in, 1 minute and 24 seconds in, and 2 minutes and 28 seconds in. So start moving as a group towards where the arrows are coming a few seconds beforehand. Stack up tightly in the exact middle of where the 2 sets of arrows will spawn, and have your raid leader call who's going on what side to be targeted and chained. You should be prioritizing people with stacks of the barbed arrow dot, since being affected by the arrow will remove all of your stacks of this older dot. As soon as the chains go out to the targeted players, blow up the arrows. Lastly, for stage 1, hold off DPS as the boss starts to get low. There's a Veil of Darkness cast at 3 minutes and 15 seconds in. We recommend you do not push the boss to 84% before this occurs. Holding DPS will help your cooldowns line up better later on in the fight. As soon as the Veil is cast, hard nuke the last small bit of health off of Sylvanas and push into the intermission. For the intermission, there's a few important changes. First up is right at the start. A set of domination arrows will come out. 19 arrows to be precise, meaning almost every member of your raid will be targeted by one. There will be 3 sets of 4 arrows around the sides, 1 set of 6 in the middle, and 1 stray arrow just chilling by itself, as you can see on your screen now. We recommend the raid stack tightly on the star marker as the arrows are spawning. The reason for this is that you'll have 24 stacks of that woe debuff on the raid by this point from the regular sets of domination arrows during stage 1. Since each stack, when affected by another domination arrows chain, deals 1300 raid damage, this start to the intermission is a massive explosion of damage on everybody. We recommend that you use 1 or even 2 damage reduction cooldowns here, like Barrier, AMZ, or Devotion Aura, to help keep the raid stable. Once the initial explosions end, everyone should just start nuking down the arrows. Blow them up as quickly as possible or your raid will get overwhelmed, people will die, and it's just not a good time. Following the arrows, the boss will cast Rive 9 times. However, on Mythic, each cast will have 5 parallel lines instead of just the 1 that you're used to on Heroic. Each of the 5 lines per cast will also spawn swirlies, so dodging everything is just going to be a lot more difficult. Being hit by a missile shooting down the line or the swirlies from the lines is basically just going to one-shot you. Dodge all of the lines and swirlies. After 9 casts, the boss will then proceed to cast Banshee's Wail, putting those small circles on everyone and forcing you to spread out. Don't get hit by anything extra here. Once that ends, you're going to want to skip the cinematic as quickly as possible, and then you'll be moving into stage 2. For stage 2, there's really 2 pretty major changes. First, immediately upon beginning the stage, 2 bridges will form instead of 1, and you have to split your raid. Each side will have to deal with 2 Maw Forged adds, the bigger ones. If a Maw Forged add ever does not have a player within 50 yards of it, it'll cast Hymn of the End, dealing 2700 shadow damage per second to the entire raid. As such, we recommend just having half go left and half go right. The left side will have a Soul Judge and a Goliath. The right side will have a Summoner and a Goliath. These will work just like Heroic, but the damage numbers are dialed up pretty significantly. Run down your bridges with your assigned team, dodge the haunting waves, and blow up your set of adds. While you're fighting those adds, Sylvanas will cast a Veil of Darkness at you, so make sure you get out of the circles and don't get hit. Once all of the adds die, each side will then get a bridge over to the next platform where you'll meet up with your friends again and have 40 seconds to burn Sylvanas. Do not use DPS cooldowns here. You're going to want to hold them for the next part of this stage. About 10 seconds into the burn, she'll cast Haunting Wave, so don't get hit by these. About 18 seconds in, she'll cast Veil of Darkness. To handle this, everybody should be standing in melee range. Put a Warlock Gateway going away towards the back of this platform, and as soon as the circles appear, everybody in the raid should click that gateway. Wait for the explosions and then go back in and just DPS some more. At 38 seconds into the burn, she'll cast Haunting Wave again. Once that cast completes, she'll go immune and cast Banshee's Wail. As she casts this Banshee's Wail, you'll want to start running to that far end of the platform again and spread out. Once the circles explode, 2 more bridges will spawn and you'll again need to split the raid. This time though, we recommend only sending 9 people left and sending 11 people to the right. On the left side, send a tank and 2 healers and your 6 best single target DPS. Everybody else will go right. The left side will have to deal with the second major mythic change for stage 2, a mythic only add called the Maw Forged Colossus. This giant tin can man has 2 abilities. Filth is a frontal cone that deals a chunk of damage and increases damage taken by subsequent filth casts. No biggie, just face the mob away from the group when this is going off. His other ability is Expulsion, which is basically a meteor style ability. This will put a circle on 2 random people on his platform. After 3 seconds and after 6 seconds, both circles will explode, dealing heavy damage but split between everybody inside the circles. We recommend stacking both of the circles and having all 9 people on the platform, including the tank, help soak. This will spread the damage enough that the healers can handle it fairly easily. Blow DPS cooldowns on this platform and annihilate the giant garbage can. On the right hand side, the rest of the raid will have to deal with a Soul Judge and a Summoner, the most dangerous combo of 2 Maw Forged adds. Blow up the first set of orbs as quickly as possible, and all DPS on this side should also blow cooldowns to deal with these adds as quickly as possible. Healers should use raid cooldowns here as necessary, especially by the time the second set of orbs comes out. There's a lot of damage going out. While your raid is dealing with these adds, you will get another Veil of Darkness cast, so watch your feet and don't stand in the circles of bad. Kill off the adds on the right side and kill off the garbage can on the left, and then new bridges will form to that final platform with Sylvanas waiting for you again. You'll get another 40 seconds of burn with the same mechanic timings as the first burn from stage 2. New card, Gateway for the Veil of Darkness. Don't get hit by the waves, just generally don't do bad things. After the Banshee's Wail, she'll go immune, do some RP, and you'll move into stage 3. Just one last note here, the smaller Moss Sworn adds throughout stage 2 do kind of like a bonk ability. Don't get hit by this, they swing the big hammer and they'll bonk you in the head. If you get hit by it, you'll probably die and people are gonna laugh at you, so just don't do that. In stage 3, there's a few important changes to be aware of mechanically. Banshee's Heartseeker will now sometimes be replaced with Banshee's Blades, which instead of being physical damage heavy with a mild shadow component, flips that. Banshee's Blades is a series of 4 attacks over 1.5 seconds, dealing a total of 28,000 physical and 76,000 shadow damage. Tanks will need to be aware of when this is happening and likely want to use a cooldown to ensure they survive. Next ability is Merciless. It's a new mechanic for Mythic. Twice on both platforms 2 and platforms 3, you'll get Soak Circles. These will knock back the Soaker and deal mild damage to them. However, if any of the circles ever go unsoaked, the raid will wipe. The last mechanical change for stage 3 is Death Knives. On Mythic, this will now put a debuff on 3 random players and shoot the knives out from each of those debuffed players in 4 directions after a few seconds. Additionally, anyone hit will explode and kill themselves and anybody within 3 yards. As far as strat goes, stage 3 is completely scripted basically to the second, so you can pre-plan most things. On platform 1, you'll start by getting some Banshee's Bane puddles. You'll want your tank to just run over these and pick them up, and the healers will just have to heal through the dot, no big deal. About 12 seconds in, you'll get a Veil of Darkness. The raid needs to pre-spread for this as it's not dodgeable anymore. 3 people will get targeted and you don't want anybody other than those 3 getting hit. Once the debuffs go out, the entire raid should collapse into melee and spread the debuffs across the entire raid. Then the healers just bomb heal onto the raid and clear the absorbs. About 26 seconds into the platform, you'll get a Banshee's Fury. Make sure you're stacked up and use a healer cooldown here. If there's any stacks of Banshee's Bane debuff on the raid when the final tick goes off, you will wipe. To prevent this, as Fury starts being cast, the tanks and anybody else who has debuff should run to the corners and call for Dispel and drop all of the puddles out on the sides away from the raid. As a rule, you should also have a priest cast Mass Dispel, timing it to actually go off about a half a second before the final tick of that Banshee's Fury. This is a preventative last resort measure just in case a stack somehow gets missed or accidentally picked up. We recommend doing this not just for this specific Banshee's Fury cast, but for everyone during stage 3. Following this Banshee's Fury cast, the boss will cast Raise. Stay on the platform as long as possible, milking damage, and then jump to the next platform at the very last second. As you land on platform 2, a set of Wailing Arrows will go out. The affected players should jump again to the next platform about 3 seconds before their arrow actually impacts and explodes. As in Heroic, the tank that gets targeted should pick up any and all puddles on that next platform and just deal with the dots. 12 seconds into platform 2, Death Knives goes out for the first time. To deal with Death Knives on Mythic, the 3 targets should move themselves and spread from each other and then plant their feet after about a second. The rest of the raid can then adjust around the lines and make sure you're standing in safe spots. Make absolutely sure you don't get hit by a knife or you'll probably cause a wipe. 18 seconds into the platform, you'll get a Banshee's Scream, so spread out for this and don't overlap the circles. Stay spread after the circles explode, because 5 seconds after they do, you'll get a Veil of Darkness cast. As soon as the Veil goes out and the debuffs are applied, you should all collapse into melee and spread the debuffs out as normal. At the same time as the Veil is applying the debuffs, you'll get your first set of Merciless Soak Circles, with 2 circles randomly placed on that platform. Make absolutely sure these get soaked. Remember, a single missed soak is a raid wipe. After that, you get a small amount of downtime. At 46 seconds into platform number 2, the boss casts Banshee's Fury. Like before, tanks should go to the corners, get dispelled, and drop the puddles away from the group. Stack up in melee, have a healer pop a cooldown, and survive through this. Following the Banshee's Fury, you'll get more Banshee's Bane puddles spawning at 56 seconds in. Your tanks should then go and pick these up. At 1 minute and 6 seconds, another set of Death Knives will go out. As the knives themselves shoot, you'll get Wailing Arrows starting to come out and picking their targets. Wait for the knives to all shoot first, and then the Wailing Arrow targets can start jumping across to the next platform. At 1 minute and 15 seconds into platform 2, you'll get a second set of Soak Circles, make sure they're soaked. At 1 minute and 26 seconds, Veil of Darkness goes out, so make sure you pre-spread for it, and then collapse onto the raid. At 1 minute and 36 seconds, the boss starts to cast Raise again. As before, Dispel the tanks and leave behind as many puddles as possible on the platform you're about to leave. Jump across at the last moment, milking as much damage as possible. On platform 3, we're going to start with an important note here. Don't use DPS cooldowns on this platform. Even though they're going to come back up, save them for platform 4 with Lust. As you land on platform 3, you'll have a Banshee's Fury, so stack up and have a healer pop cooldown. At 15 seconds in, you'll get Death Knives. At 24 seconds in, you'll get Banshee's Scream, spread out for that. Right as those circles explode, at 30 seconds in, 4 Merciless Soak Circles will spawn. Make sure all 4 get soaked, or again, you wipe. Following the Soak Circles is a Veil of Darkness, so make sure you spread out for that, and then collapse into melee. As the Veil applies its debuffs, Wailing Arrows start to come out, so as always, jump a few seconds before your arrow impacts you. At 50 seconds into platform 3, you'll get Banshee's Bane puddles. Do not touch these. Because at 60 seconds in, you'll get another Banshee's Fury cast. It is vital you don't have stacks for this cast. If anyone does, get them dispelled. Tanks should be going to the corners, calling for their dispels anyway. Pop your healer cooldown and survive this. This one in particular, it's extremely important if you can have a mass dispel going off about a half second before that final tick. Remember, a single stack of Banshee's Bane on anybody in the raid at the end of Banshee's Fury is likely a raid wipe. At a minute and 10, you'll get more Death Knives. At a minute 15, overlapping with the end of the Death Knives, another set of 4 Soak Circles will appear, so get them soaked. At a minute and 33 seconds in, you'll get another Veil of Darkness. At this point on the platform, it'll be mostly covered by puddles. To ensure the raid has room to spread for Veil, your tanks should run around and pick up as many of the puddles as possible and pop a defensive cooldown to stay alive through the dot. Then the raid can spread out for the Veil. As soon as the Veil goes out and applies its debuffs, the tanks should both get to the corners and call for a dispel. Healers need to be quick here with the dispels, as the dot is going to be pretty big and you don't want a tank to die from it. Following that Veil, Sylvanas will cast Raise, so if there's any leftover Banshee's Bane dots, get them dispelled before jumping. Over on platform 4, as you land, you'll get Wailing Arrows. Now, unfortunately here, you can't just jump to a different platform, so these are pretty dangerous. To counter them, you should have the entire raid stacked tightly in a corner. Set up a Warlock gateway to the exact opposite corner of the platform. The Wailing Arrow targets should click that gateway about 2 seconds before the arrow impacts them and run to the very edge of that opposite corner. As soon as it explodes on you, run back towards the raid. Rinse and repeat for all of the arrows. Following that, at about 20 seconds into platform 4, you'll get a Banshee's Fury. As always, ensure there's no stacks on the raid and use a healer cooldown to keep stable during this. Unfortunately though, you can't stack during this one, as Death Knives will come out at exactly the same time. The Death Knife targets need to ensure that a safe spot is made near that corner where the raid is, and the raid needs to make sure they aren't standing on any lines. Everybody should use a defensive, health stone, health pot, or multiple of these to survive through the Banshee's Fury. This is probably the most likely part of platform 4 for your raid to lose people. Following that bad overlap is a Banshee's Scream, so make sure everyone just spreads out. This is then followed by new Banshee's Bane puddles, which your tanks should just pick up. Following the new puddles, at about 45 seconds in, you'll have a Veil of Darkness. So having that platform clear of puddles is vital so the raid can spread out. As soon as the Veil hits, stack in the melee range, pop Bloodlust and all DPS cooldowns, and absolutely just bomb damage into Sylvanas. You'll get almost 20 seconds of uninterrupted DPS here, so nuke as hard as you possibly can. At a minute and 5 seconds in, you'll get a new set of Wailing Arrows. Handle these like you did the first set from this platform 4, using a gateway to the opposite corner. At a minute and 15 seconds in, you'll get Death Knives overlapping with the Wailing Arrows actually exploding. Spread the knives out, don't stand in lines, and have a healer pop a cooldown here to keep the raid stable. At a minute and 25 seconds in, the boss casts Banshee's Fury, so ensure your tanks get dispelled and nobody has a Banshee's Bane debuff. Following that, the boss casts Raise. Kill her before she kills you. And there you have it. Congrats on your cutting edge kill. Thank you everyone so much for taking this journey through the Sanctum of Domination with us. As always, remember to give the video a like and subscribe to the channel to catch all of our previews, guides, kill videos, and more. From the whole team here at Complexity Limit, we hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next tier.